Help me hit 1,000 subscribers, support the video with a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone, thank you. I used to believe that secrets were harmless as long as they stayed buried, shadows that would sink quietly if I pushed them deep enough. But the night Adrian uncovered the truth, I learned something brutal about secrets: they don't drown. They wait. They rot. And when they rise, they destroy everything you built on top of them. I met Adrian Hale 3 years ago, long before guilt became a second heartbeat in my chest. Back then, he was the kind of man who made grief look survivable. Tall, soft-spoken, with eyes that carried storms but never released them. He had already lost more than a person should lose: his mother, his brother, his childhood home in a fire that left him with scars no one could see. Yet, he still walked into every room like he believed people were good. Maybe that's why my betrayal hit him so fiercely. The story begins months before he found out, months before the night that carved itself into my memory with blades instead of ink. I was working at Harrow and Dresden, an investment consultancy with polished floors and colder morals. Adrian worked in crisis analytics, one of the only departments that didn't swim in manipulation. He was brilliant but quiet. A man who spent more time helping coworkers secretly than taking credit publicly. And I was the opposite. Ambitious. Restless. Hungry for the kind of success that comes with shortcuts. The shortcut came in the form of Rowan Mercer. Rowan, with his perfect smile and venom-coated charm, was the rising star of the firm. He promised me influence, promotions, a direct pathway into rooms I had no business entering, if I helped him with one thing: gaining access to Adrian's internal reports. Adrian didn't know it, but his analysis was uncovering millions in concealed losses that Rowan and his circle were responsible for. Rowan needed time to shift the blame elsewhere. He needed me to stall Adrian's work. Redirect files. Delay alerts. Make the data look incomplete. A small betrayal, I told myself. A harmless pivot. Adrian wouldn't even notice. But people like Adrian always notice. Just not immediately. For months, I carried my secret like a ticking clock inside my chest. Adrian trusted me completely, more than I deserved. He shared stories with me, pieces of himself, memories of the brother he lost. He spoke to me with a gentleness I had never received from anyone. And slowly, painfully, I fell for him. Not the shallow kind of affection that crumbles with inconvenience. No, I fell in the trembling, terrified way a person does when they realize they've finally met someone capable of loving them right. That should have been enough for me to stop. But Rowan had power over me, real, tangible power. I had signed documents, compromised my position, woven myself so tightly into his scheme that pulling out felt impossible. Some betrayals start with choice, others become cages. The turning point came on a storm-heavy Thursday evening. Adrian invited me to his apartment, a small, warm place filled with books, tea mugs, and the quiet comfort of someone who has lived through chaos and chosen peace. He said he had found something in the data that bothered him. I felt the first crack in my chest, but I kept smiling. Pretending. Bluffing my way through the fear. He brewed chamomile tea for me. I remember the way he handed me the cup, gentle, almost too gentle. The way his fingers brushed mine as if he were afraid I might break. I remember thinking, if he ever finds out, it will ruin him. And the guilt became unbearable. But nothing could have prepared me for the night he truly discovered the truth. It wasn't in his apartment. It wasn't at the office. It wasn't in a conversation or a confrontation. It was far worse. 3 nights later, the firm's main server crashed. A catastrophic failure that exposed every hidden folder, every redirected file, every manipulation I had made. Alarms blared. Emergency meetings were called. The entire company fell into panic. But Adrian, he went silent. And then, he disappeared. The nightmare began when I received a message, one line, sent from his number, at 1:14 a.m. I know everything. And beneath it, an address. A place he should never have been. A place tied to Rowan's darkest operations. A place where my betrayal had dragged him without me even realizing it. My blood turned ice. Adrian hadn't just discovered the truth. He had walked straight into it. And I was the reason he was in danger. The address he sent me lay on the outskirts of the city, an abandoned textile warehouse stripped bare long before I ever joined Harrow and Dresden. But I knew exactly what it had become. Rowan used it for off-record meetings, data exchanges, and the kind of negotiations that never survived sunlight. Only a handful of people knew of its existence. Adrian wasn't supposed to be one of them. Rain hammered against my windshield as I drove, each drop a countdown to something terrible. Every red light felt like a lifetime. Every street lamp flickered like an omen. My hands trembled against the steering wheel so violently I could hear the soft tap of my nails hitting the leather. I kept telling myself he wouldn't go inside. That he would wait. That something, anything, would stop this from unfolding. But deep down, I knew better. Adrian wasn't reckless, but he was brave. Bravery rooted in pain is unpredictable. It pushes people into darkness if it means protecting others from it. When I finally reached the warehouse, the world felt unnervingly quiet, no cars, no footsteps, no signs of movement. Just the building standing like a scar against the stormlit sky. I pushed the heavy door open. The sound echoed, a hollow metallic groan that sank into the vast emptiness inside. Adrian? My voice cracked. Adrian, please. My footsteps rang across the concrete floor. The air smelled of rust and old secrets. Far ahead, a dim light flickered in one of the back rooms. I followed it, my breath shaking out in uneven bursts. And there he was. Sitting on an overturned crate. Rain-soaked. Silent. Holding printed pages, pages filled with every file I had altered, every alert I had buried, every trail I had redirected. He didn't look angry. He looked fractured. As if every piece of trust he had ever offered me had shattered and slipped through his fingers. Lena, he said. My name fell from his lips like a verdict, not a greeting. Tell me why. My knees almost gave out. I sank to the ground in front of him, unable to stand beneath the weight of his gaze. I was trapped, I whispered. Rowan, he threatened my position. My future. I thought it wouldn't affect you. I thought I could fix it before you ever noticed. You used my work, he murmured slowly, each word slicing through me. You knew what it meant to me. Why didn't you come to me? Because I had been a coward. Because I never wanted him to see the parts of me that weren't admirable or kind or worth loving. Because I had already fallen for him, and betrayal feels heavier when affection grows. Before I could speak, the heavy clang of the outer door slammed through the warehouse. We weren't alone. Adrian's head snapped toward the sound. His eyes widened, not in fear, but in realization. You weren't followed, he whispered. I was. Rowan emerged from the shadows with two men behind him, their expressions cold and unreadable. He looked at Adrian the way a wolf looks at a trespasser. I should have known, Rowan said, clicking his tongue. The quiet ones are always the problem. Adrian stood, not defensively, but with a kind of resigned bravery that made my throat burn. If you're here to intimidate me, you're wasting your time. Rowan's smile sharpened. Intimidate? No. I'm here because you're threatening everything I've built. And his eyes flicked to me, opened the door for you without realizing it. My heart stopped. Adrian stepped slightly in front of me. She didn't know what you were involved in. Rowan laughed, a sound too smooth for the situation. Oh, but she did. She just didn't know the depth. The men advanced. Adrian's fingers brushed mine, barely a touch, but enough to send a tremor through my entire body. Run, he whispered. I'm not leaving you. Lena, please. Go. The chaos that followed felt like a blur, shouting, the sound of a struggle, the crash of something heavy hitting the floor. I ran because he begged me to, because the alternative was watching him get swallowed by a world I had knowingly fed. Outside, I dialed the police with shaking hands. My voice cracked as I gave the address. Sirens screamed in the distance. They arrived fast, too fast for Rowan to cover his tracks. Officers stormed the warehouse. I waited, rain pouring over me like punishment. Minutes passed like hours. When they finally brought Adrian out, bruised but alive, something inside me broke loose. He didn't look in my direction at first. He stared at the ground, his breath unsteady. When his eyes finally lifted to meet mine, grief filled them, not just because of what Rowan had done, but because of what I had done. They took Rowan in handcuffs. His empire collapsed within days. The firm launched an internal investigation, and the truth detonated like a bomb. But the real wreckage wasn't corporate. It was Adrian. And me. We spoke 2 days later. Not in anger. Not in accusations. Just honesty, raw, painful honesty. I cared about you, he said quietly. Maybe I still do. But trust, it doesn't return just because the truth does. I nodded, tears slipping down my face. I know. I'll earn it back. Or I'll carry the weight of losing it. Whatever you choose, Adrian. I won't lie again. His silence wasn't forgiveness. But it wasn't finality either. Sometimes endings aren't clean, they're open, fragile, trembling like a bridge rebuilt one plank at a time. Some betrayals destroy. Some betrayals reveal. And some, like mine, teach you that the hardest forgiveness isn't from others. It's from yourself.